If you ever caught a glimpse of me quietly moving through the spotless hallways of the Pacific Maritime Registry, you'd probably assume I was just another forgettable office worker. At only 20 years old, I had carefully crafted that illusion. My faded tweed jacket was always covered in lint, my rust-colored station wagon barely crawled down the highway, and every day at exactly noon, I sat alone eating the same bland bowl of oatmeal. To everyone around me, I was simply Beatrice from Archival, tracking the quiet woman who spent her days sending boring emails about document storage policies and database formatting rules. Most employees barely remembered I existed. My boss Julian certainly didn't. Julian was the company's self-proclaimed visionary marketing director. He strutted through the Seattle headquarters in expensive Italian suits paired with bright neon sneakers, convinced that made him look innovative. Every conversation somehow became a speech about disrupting industries, crushing metrics, or redefining success. That morning he stopped beside my cubicle, surrounded by a group of eager interns. "Beatrice, did you seriously delay our brochure shipment because the cargo manifest was missing an environmental certification?" he asked with a mocking grin. I looked up from my screen. Protocol 23 requires verified ecological clearance before any maritime freight enters international waters, I replied calmly. Julian laughed. "You're a relic, B." The interns laughed with him. "Anyway, bring your reports to the auditorium at 2:10. I'm unveiling our revolutionary investor portal." He patted my monitor and walked away, basking in the admiration of people who mistook confidence for competence. The moment the doors closed behind him, my expression changed. A hidden command sequence flashed across my screen. What Julian never knew was that the Pacific Maritime Registry wasn't what it appeared to be. The public believed our agency tracked fishing quotas, shipping routes, and cargo efficiency. That was the cover story. Behind layers of classified encryption existed a second operation, one hidden from governments, corporations, and even most employees within the building. And I was one of the very few people with access. While my coworkers spent their days debating television shows and office gossip, I coordinated intelligence reports involving rogue vessels, illegal weapons shipments, and high-risk maritime threats moving across international waters. Officially, I was an archivist. Unofficially, I was a Level A operations coordinator for a covert international security network. My authorization granted access to information so sensitive that even a minor breach could trigger global consequences. The isolation was difficult. Few people understand what it feels like to quietly prevent disasters while everyone around you assumes you're incapable of handling basic office work. Inside the locked bottom drawer of my desk rested a worn green binder labeled Municipal Plumbing Codes, 1994. No one had ever opened it. No one wanted to. Which made it the perfect hiding place. Because beneath that painfully boring title were the physical decryption keys to an entire network of phantom shipping lanes routes that officially did not exist, but were responsible for preventing some of the most dangerous cargo on Earth from reaching civilian shores. And today, for the first time in years, that forgotten green binder contained something far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Inside were the active routing blueprints for Operation Triton, a top-secret maritime mission involving the transportation of highly unstable radioactive material recovered from a long-lost Cold War submarine. The cargo required constant route adjustments through remote ocean corridors, and even the smallest calculation error could trigger an international crisis. I sat quietly at my desk, carefully recalculating deep-sea navigation paths and avoiding civilian sonar networks, when disaster walked straight into my office wearing an expensive suit. Julian. He appeared behind me so suddenly that I nearly jumped. "B, my tablet is stuck updating again," he said, flashing his usual arrogant grin. "I need to borrow your dinosaur laptop so I can run the investor presentation." My stomach instantly tightened. The rugged government-issued terminal sitting on my desk wasn't an ordinary computer. It contained encrypted operational data that was never meant to be connected to a public display. Kept my voice calm. This terminal contains restricted databases that are incompatible with standard presentation systems. Julian rolled his eyes. "I don't care about your boring spreadsheets." Before I could react, He reached across my desk and grabbed the laptop. My finger hovered just inches from the emergency security command that would have instantly erased the device. But it was too late. The terminal was already gone. With no other option, I stood up, adjusted my worn tweed jacket, and followed him toward the main auditorium. A terrible feeling settled in my chest. Something was about to go very wrong. The glass-walled auditorium was packed. More than 40 investors, executives, and board members filled the seats beneath a massive panoramic display screen stretching across the front wall. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was excited. None of them had any idea what was sitting inside the laptop Julian was carrying. Julian marched confidently onto the stage like a celebrity entering a red carpet event. Without waiting for system authorization, he connected my secure terminal directly into the presentation network. The screen lit up. "Ladies and gentlemen," Julian announced proudly, "today we're eliminating outdated secrecy and bringing total transparency to maritime operations." The audience applauded. I didn't. I was already moving toward the stage. Too late. Julian began clicking through windows, closing programs he didn't recognize. Several warning messages appeared. Crimson Firewall Alert. Secure access restricted. Authorized personnel only. To him they looked like annoying pop-up notifications. With a careless click, he dismissed every single one. Then the room went silent. His presentation vanished. The giant screen suddenly transformed into a high-resolution satellite command interface covering the entire Pacific Ocean. Flashing crimson alerts exploded across the display. Classified Naval Intercept Protocol restricted access, active operation in progress. The audience froze. Conversations stopped. Even the air seemed to leave the room. Julian laughed nervously into the microphone. "Wow. Looks like Beatrice has been playing some kind of military video game during office hours." A few uncomfortable chuckles echoed through the auditorium. I didn't laugh, because what was on that screen wasn't a game. It was real. Terrifyingly real. Julian zoomed further into the map. Detailed vessel locations appeared. Encrypted identification markers. Cargo manifest. Live operational tracking routes. Information that should never have been visible outside a secure command center. The room filled with shocked whispers. Several investors immediately pulled out their phones. Camera flashes began appearing throughout the audience. Every second that passed made the breach worse. And Julian still had absolutely no idea what he had just exposed to the world. The moment I realized the security breach could no longer be contained, an unexpected calm settled over me. Panic would accomplish nothing. Action would. Without drawing attention, I slipped my hand into my jacket pocket and pressed a concealed biometric transmitter. One silent signal. That was all it took. Within seconds, the entire building's network was severed. Every smartphone, tablet, wireless router, and recording device instantly lost connection. Confused murmurs spread through the auditorium. Then came the sound. Boom! Massive emergency security shutters slammed down over the glass walls with a thunderous metallic crash. The room plunged into darkness. A heartbeat later, crimson emergency lights flickered on, bathing the auditorium in an eerie red glow. The ventilation system shut down. Security seals activated. Every exit locked automatically. The once celebratory investor meeting had transformed into a sealed containment zone. "Everyone stay calm," Julian shouted into the microphone. His confident executive voice was gone. Fear had finally replaced arrogance. "This is probably just some kind of electrical malfunction." He rushed toward the nearest exit and yanked desperately on the door handle. Nothing. The reinforced security locks remained firmly engaged. For the first time since I'd met him, Julian looked genuinely terrified. I slowly stepped forward. The timid office clerk everyone knew seemed to disappear. In her place stood someone entirely different. "Julian," I said calmly, my voice echoing through the silent auditorium. "You ignored multiple security warnings and publicly exposed highly restricted operational information." The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward me. Julian stared in disbelief. Before he could respond, a deafening explosion echoed through the building. The reinforced entry doors burst open. A heavily armed tactical response team flooded into the room with disciplined precision. Their dark uniforms and advanced equipment immediately silenced every remaining protest. Executives dropped to the floor. Board members froze in shock. Within moments, the entire auditorium was secured. Several officers moved directly toward Julian. His resistance lasted less than a second. The man who had spent years talking over everyone else suddenly had nothing left to say. The tactical team leader walked past dozens of stunned investors and stopped directly in front of me. Then, to the complete disbelief of everyone in the room, he offered a respectful nod. "Containment protocols complete," he reported. I acknowledged the update. "The breach originated from that individual," I said, gesturing toward Julian. All security warnings were deliberately ignored before the unauthorized exposure occurred. The room erupted into shocked whispers. No one could believe what they were hearing. The quiet archivist they had ignored for years was apparently the most important person in the building. As Julian was escorted away, his expensive suit now covered in dust and sweat, reality finally settled over the remaining executives. Everything they thought they knew about me had been wrong. The tactical commander turned toward the board members. "Effective immediately," he announced. "Operational authority for this facility falls under her supervision." The auditorium remained silent. No one argued. No one questioned it. I looked across the room at the shattered remains of Julian's presentation and felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. For years, he had mistaken silence for weakness. He had confused professionalism with incompetence. And in the end, the person he dismissed as invisible became the one standing when his entire world collapsed. Sometimes the loudest people in the room seem powerful. But real power rarely needs to announce itself. It simply waits for the right moment to be revealed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us continue bringing more exciting, suspenseful, and inspiring stories to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.